I like to begin with this book translation I did. This is on Bikuni ordination from ancient India to contemporary Sri Lanka, written by Bhikkhu Analayo, one of the very famous monks from Germany and living in Barre, Massachusetts. So I did the translation into Sinhala, and we have it side by side, English to Sinhala. And this has been forwarded by many monks that are, who are supporting women in the present society. This is the forward by Bhante Gunaratana. He is the abbot at Bhavana Society, West Virginia. And also this has the forward by Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi, the American Buddhist monk living in New York City, and the author of many, many books. And finally, this has Ajahn Brahams forward, who also has established Bikuni order in Australia and in England and elsewhere in the world. So I have been really blessed to have the opportunity to talk about this project. And one of the discussions I had on this project is Bikuni ordination. This was published in buddhistdoor.net by my friend Harsha Menon. So just like that, this has gone to places, and many monks and nuns find this helpful as a resource book when they talk about women empowerment in Buddhism. Well, so when it comes to women empowerment, please think about Buddhism as having 4 assemblies. Bhikkhus means monks. Bhikkhunis means the women, the ordained women. And then we have male lay followers, and we have female lay followers. So these are called 4 assemblies. And the Buddha has made a prediction this is recorded in Mahaparinibbana Sutta, that when the Mara was telling the Buddha to pass away, that Mara's duty is to not spread Dhamma, Mara's duty is to prevent the spread of Dhamma. He was telling the Buddha, that you have done enough. Now it is time for you to pass away. And the Buddha's response is beautifully recorded in the beginning of this book, that says, "Evil one, that is Mara, I will not enter final Nibbana for as long as my Bhikkhuni disciples are not competent, disciplined, confident, learned, upholders of Dhamma and practitioners of Dhamma." So the Buddha tells that, he had this intention that his bhikkhus, bhikkhunis, lay followers, and lay women followers, all of them have been given this same explanation, that the Buddha will not pass away until these 4 branches, they all learn Dhamma, explain Dhamma, practice Dhamma, and reach to the goal. So we all share that responsibility that the Buddha intended. So at the end it says, practicing in the proper way, living in conformity with the Dhamma, who having learned it from their own teacher will explain it, teach it, declare it, establish it, disclose it, analyze it, and reveal it. And having well refuted with Dhamma the tenets of others. So when there are other people questioning whether you are a woman or a man or a bhikkhu or a bhikkhuni, when they ask questions, you will be able to respond without getting anybody else's support. This is how strong the Buddha wanted all the 4 assemblies was. So there is an incident recorded in the Pali Discourses. This talks about women's ability to awaken. And there's a famous verse that goes as, "Itti bhavo king kaira." What does being a woman matter? Chittam hi susamahite. To one with correct insight into the Dhamma. Jnanam hi vattamanam hi. when the mind is well concentrated, when there is proper knowledge, Samma Dhammang Vipassato, and knowledge increases. So Samma Dhammang Vipassato is when the mind is, Samma, properly concentrated, and that your knowledge, it doesn't matter, gender irrespective, the wisdom increases because we all have the ability to awaken. So this is actually a response given by a bhikkhuni. When Mara appeared in front of this bhikkhuni, this is recorded in Bhikkhuni Sanyutta, and this bhikkhuni responds that, my being a woman has nothing to do with my enlightenment. I can be, I can develop my knowledge and wisdom and act and respond the same way, and that is all that matters. That I can also attain nibbana. So now I will take you to these slides. So bhikkhuni or bhikshuni, these are the words used for Buddhist monastics. And so let's go on. This is now in the present world, they say this is the sisterhood. So sometimes we call the nuns as sisters. When we say nuns, it's not N-O-N-E nuns, it is N-O-N-U-N nuns. You see, there are many venerable bhikkhunis to the present date, Ayata Taloka, Venerable Tuptan Chodran, and Aya Vimala, many venerable monks, Bhikkhuni Kusuma from Sri Lanka, many different bhikkhunis doing their services. Sometimes they have been cave dwellers, they live in the forest. This is a venerable from Thailand. This is Ammatana Santi Bhikkhuni. So she's no longer a bhikkhuni, but she's a Dhamma teacher. Ayakema, all these venerable ones have done an enormous service to Buddhism. And sometimes there is little prejudice. We need to address this, that sometimes monks don't admit it. So I understand that as my duty that we monks need to, and I also have it as my goal for the future, to continue supporting venerable bhikkhunis as best as I can, to support the women, because if we monks don't support them, sometimes we are not doing our duty, that the Buddha asked us to do this duty. So this is an image of bhikkhunis listening to Dhamma teachings. They were, in their sisterhood, they chat Dhamma with each other. They do, they do behave and act, and they do all the things that monks did at the time. So now you see sites associated with the life of the Buddha. You see these areas, of course, northern parts of the India, Kapilavastu, Lumbini area, Saranath, Varanasi, Bodh Gaya. These are the places, that they flourished. And in this presentation, we have, in the past Buddha's time, King Kiki and of Kasi had 7 daughters, Kema, Uppalavanna, Patachara, Bhadda, Kundalakesa, Kisa Gotami, Dhammadinna, Visakha. So they were determined to be born in the present Buddha's time because of their association with past Buddhas. Kema wishes to go forth, and then in Theriyapadana we find Kema to have said, now our father did not give permission, but we, those staying at home, lived the holy life for 20,000 years. You see the lifespan at that time. unwearingly, remaining happily, daughters of the king devoted to serving the Buddha, 7 daughters taking delight. You see how much faith they have at the time. And then the Buddha, the present Buddha, becomes enlightened. And the beginning of the Bhikkhuni order, there is this story that King Suddhodana, he passed away, and Prajapati Gautami, she wanted to join the order. She was already a stream winner. You know the word stream winner means? Stream winner means you have opened the eye of Dhamma, and you see that you are destined to awakening within 7 births, 7 lifetimes. So maybe it happens sooner. But in her case, she became an Arahant Bhikkhuni soon after joining the order. So this is found in Thailand, Mahapajapati Gautami and 52 Bhikkhunis. She's in the, she's always, depicted with other Bhikkhunis because she shaved her head, and she was strongly determined that she needed to, in the first place, when the Buddha refused that women not be entered the order, because Buddha saw that it would be dangerous, because times a girl cannot pass without having the attention of some evil people. Just like that, in the Buddha's time also, especially when these royals wanted to join the order, they never had any skill in surviving in the village or in the jungles, in forest places. So they never learned, because they always lived in the household life, in supreme luxuries. So the Buddha was a little bit reluctant. And you see, sometimes the Buddha is criticized for not giving the ordination straight away. But at that point, there were concerns that the Buddha had. The Buddha's attendant monk, so that Mahaprajapati Gautami was crying and has shaved her own hair and put on yellow robes. Sometimes the history says that maybe she wasn't that stubborn because she was already a Sotapanna, stream winner. But again, she was strongly determined that she wanted to enter the order, and she was refused. At that point, she was a little sad. She, went to the side of the monastery, and she and 500 followers, women who also took her lead. They walked many miles barefoot, bleeding their feet, requesting to enter the order, because they never found any solace, any happiness back in the palace anymore. And Venerable Ananda, the attendant monk of the Buddha, happened to see Mahaprajapati and her followers, and went to the Buddha and asked, can women become enlightened? The Buddha, of course, said, yes, they can. And at this point, it was like 10 years after the Buddha's enlightenment. So 5 years after Buddha visiting his father's kingdom. So all of that has happened, and Mahaprajapati is here. Now, Venerable Ananda said, your mother, Mahaprajapati Gautami, she breastfed you, she looked after you, she was there for you when your own mother passed away. Mahamaya passed away. And the Buddha told Venerable Ananda that, of course, okay, women can enter the order, but if they agree to these 8 principles. And all these 8 principles are about monks giving the due protection for nuns, and to make sure that there was interaction between monks and nuns all the time, so that they they happen to get the righteous, correct shelter, correct support all the time. And this was, if you analyze them carefully, as you will see in the book, this book is also available online, and I can show you how to find it, that the Buddha certainly wanted this strong communion, strong support from bhikkhus to bhikkhunis. This is when this was presented to Mahaprajapati Gautami, she told Venerable Ananda that definitely I will be delighted to follow accordingly, and I will wear it like a garland. And this is how she entered the order, and after that, she became foremost among the bhikkhunis who has the seniority. So there are these titles given by the Buddha, and I will go to them later in the slides. The Buddha establishes the bhikkhuni order like this. I allow, O bhikkhus, bhikkhunis to be ordained by you. This was the beginning of the bhikkhuni order in India. And also, like I said earlier, I will not pass away, the Buddha says, until I have bhikkhu disciples, bhikkhuni disciples, layman disciples, laywoman disciples who are accomplished, disciplined, skilled, learned. So this is in the great passing away, Mahaparinibbana Sutta. And there were many enlightened bhikkhunis. You see the titles here. Kema is one of the bhikkhunis. She became foremost in great wisdom. Uppalavanna, she became foremost among those who had spiritual powers. Patachara, she became foremost among those who had vinaya, discipline. Bhadda Kundalakesa, so she was speed. She had the speed. She was awakened in such a speed that she became foremost among speed to gain awakening. Kisa Gotami, among those who had asceticism. Dhamma Dinna was killed, the foremost. There were many nuns who were able to teach the Dhamma, but she was foremost among Dhamma teachings. Visakha, she was the foremost disciple as a female supporter of Sangha. So this is a painting of bhikkhunis requesting ordination from Bhikkhu Sangha. This is found in Wat Po mural in Thailand. And when a bhikkhuni has become enlightened, that means they have removed their craving, hatred, delusion, and ignorance. They have become dispassionate by cultivating wisdom, that they don't find any delight in the impermanence they find through their wisdom in the world. So they detach from it, and they let the raga, the lustful attachment, fade away until there is nothing, no residue left. So they can do it. So after caught in its current, like a spider in its self-made web. It's a beautiful simile. This applies to men and women. Those who are attached, they are carried away with the flood of samsara, and sometimes they are stuck like a spider stuck in its self-made web. This is a great metaphor, that we are all stuck like that in our own worlds, that we realize sometimes it's too late when we realize that it is time to get out of this self-made net, but then we are too old. I remember in the discussion yesterday evening that this 70-something years old Upasika, she was asking, now that I have wasted my life, do I have any quick ways to meditate and overcome my suffering? I think of death all the time. So these are human concerns that we all get. And now, being very wise, Kema, on the other hand, she realized this early in her life, and she was able to overcome suffering. And she said, those who go forth, they become free from longing, abandoning the pleasure of desire. So this is the idea of going forth, means you become a monk or a nun. So Ayya Kema, Venerable Kema, as you saw earlier, became the nun who was foremost in wisdom. If you read Etadagga Pali in Buddhism, in Buddhist scripture, you find both monks and nuns who have been offered these titles by the Buddha. And there is a huge list of very prominent monks and nuns like that. And you will be so inspired if you put your thoughts into it. You will realize that there were many others who had this skill, but then the Buddha named one particular Bikuni who had this skill. Uppalavanna was known for her spiritual powers. She was able to, rise into the air and show miraculous powers. And let me tell you, in Apadana Pali, it is said that Maha Prajapati Gotami came to say goodbye to the Buddha, having been the first ordained bhikkhuni in Buddha's dispensation, Buddha's sasana. She bowed to the Buddha and said, my time has come to pass away. Let me show spiritual powers that I have gained and inspire others. And I also have a confession like this. She said, when you were small, I was breastfeeding you, and when you were little bigger, I had this gold plate, and I put rice in it, and I was, feeding you little by little, and I also ate from it. If I knew that you were going to be the Buddha, I would have never done it. And she said, Ahang Sugata Matate. Sugata, this is also a word for the Buddha, an epithet to the Buddha, well-gone one. You are the well-gone one. And although I am your mother, Twancha Vira Pita Mama. Vira is the word for hero. You are my hero. I call you my father. Muhutta Tanha Samana. To appease your craving for a moment, Kirang Tavapaita Mama. I was even breastfeeding you. But, she said, Tayahang Santa Machantam, by you, extremely peaceful, Dhamma Kirang Hipaita. You fed me with milk of Dhamma. So I'm forever grateful to you, said Mahaprajapati. Arahant Bhikkhuni Dhamma Dina has inspired many women. Also, if you read, what is that sutra? Chulla Vedalla Sutra and Mahavedalla Sutta, you find her skillful questioning and answering, and it has become one of the very, very full, it says, teaching full of wisdom. If you read Chulla Vedalla Sutra, Majjhima Nikaya 43, you will find her wisdom recorded in there. And the Buddha finally said, if anybody asked these same questions from me, I would have answered the same way. So Visakha, her former husband, who was already an Anagami disciple, he went to her and asked these questions, and she beautifully answered. And you will be so like it's mind-blowing the way she responded. When Patachara learns about impermanence, she said, going along, about to bring forth, I saw my husband dead, having given birth on the path. I had not yet arrived at my own house because she was longing to see her parents, and her two sons dead, and a husband dead upon the path, for miserable me, mother and father and brother were burning upon on one pyre. Then I saw the flesh of my sons being eaten in the midst of the cemetery. This was the suffering she went through. And just as a candle blows away, she became enlightened. She joins the Bikuni community, and you see the monastery. There is also this painting in Thailand. This is another painting requesting the Pabbaja from Bikuni Sangha. And these are present Bikunis. Sobhana Bikuni, Nibbida Bikuni, Tatha Loka Bikuni, Santachari Samaneri, Suvijjana Bikuni. These are Western Bikunis. By the time of Emperor Asoka, a convert to Buddhism, the orders of bhikkhus and bhikkhunis were well established in India. So this is one of the many pillars erected by Emperor Asoka when he converted himself to Buddhism, and you see the wheel of Dhamma on top, that he wanted the message of the Buddha to spread across the universe, across the globe. And Bhikkhuni Sangha, when Emperor Asoka sent his son Mahinda and daughter Sanghamitta to Sri Lanka in the 3rd century BCE, she came with the sapling of the Bodhi tree under which the Buddha became enlightened, and that sapling is still there in Sri Lanka. Unfortunately, we will discuss this later. Sometimes even monks or women are not allowed to reach to that Bodhi tree to make offerings, saying that women are not pure, and I don't approve that, because if a woman was able to bring it, how come she's not allowed to go up to the Bodhi tree? These are just social prejudice made by some sort of hierarchical thinkers. So Bhikkhuni Sangha also spread to China at some point. In 429 CE, a bhikkhuni named Devasara traveled from Sri Lanka to China. And Sri Lankan bhikkhunis established unbroken bhikkhuni lineage in China, and it went on. One major thing prevented the spread of the bhikkhuni order was a great range of mountains that they did not have the ability to cross these cold mountains. So, but they were flourishing in China and remaining there. Later, around after the 15th century, both Bhikkhu and Bhikkhuni Sangha died out. They shrunk, and they survived in other places in the world, but not primarily in India. In Sri Lanka, you find this Sanghamitta shrine in Kelaniya, Sri Lanka. Kelaniya is a place visited by the Buddha. So before the 3rd century, at the time of the Buddha, he visited Kelaniya, and there are these stories, and this is the Sanghamitta shrine there. Bhikkhu Sanghas of South Asia have been revived multiple times, but the Bhikkhuni Sanghas of Sri Lanka, Southeast Asia were not revived at the same time, because Bhikkhu Sangha also had almost become extinct But however, when it got nearly extinct from Sri Lanka, they went to Thailand, and Thai monks came and established the full ordination, and again Buddhist monks flourished in Sri Lanka. So this went on and on, like back and forth. When it disappeared in Thailand, Sri Lankan monks went, and then when it disappeared in Burma, Thai monks or Sri Lankan monks went and established Buddhism. So there was this exchange. So they had those concerns, but for Bhikkhuni Sangha, there was barely any revival attempt until later in the day. So this is from Santi Forest Monastery. This is a Bhikkhuni waiting for Bhikkhuni ordination for its revival for such a long time. And ironically, she's saying that I have been waiting for so long for it to happen. So how did the current Theravada Bhikkhuni order revive? So this is who are some of the current preeminent Bhikkhuni leaders and teachers. So this is the Venerable Ayya Tataloka, I suppose. She's giving teachings to these children. It's a beautiful scene. And these are Mahayana Bhikshunis in large numbers, existing in China, in South Korea, and in Japan. And Venerable Ajahn Brahm.
This way here.
Somebody needs to be silent.
Can you please, all of you, please mute so that Bhanteji's talk doesn't get disturbed, please.
Yeah, so sometimes it happens that you happen to touch the wrong button, and then you don't realize that you are being seen by the whole audience.
Yeah, sorry about that.
It can happen. So, and Venerable Ajahn Braham, he has been expelled, I think that's the word, when he came forward to support Bhikkhunis, monks from Thailand. I think the Supreme Patriarch and monks rejected him from the Thai Sangha. So Dharma Guptaka has been one of the Vinayas practiced by Mahayana schools, and Dharma Guptaka, according to Venerable Ajahn Brahm, is one of the old Theravada branches. I have been fortunate to be the translator of Venerable Ajahn Brahm in several times in long retreats in Sri Lanka, and the talks are available online. So I know that he has done a yeoman service to establish Bhikkhuni order, and these Bhikkhunis are teaching in every part of the world. This is another Bhikkhuni. She is Bhikkhuni Dao Fasu, the first Thai woman to become Bhikkhuni in the 20th century. She was born in 1908, ordained in 1955. She didn't have full ordination in 1971. She had to travel to Taiwan and received her full ordination. The Bhikshuni Jetsumna Tenzing Pamo, this is from the Tibetan tradition. In 1963, she left London and went to India to study Buddhism. And she became the second Western woman to receive novice ordination, Shramanerika, 1964. And in 1965, she lived in a remote cave in Himalayas for 12 years. And in 1973, she received the full Bhikshuni ordination in Hong Kong. And then in year 2000, she established the Dongkyu Katsal Ling Nunnery in the Himalayas. And this is Bhikshuni Pema Chodron. She's born in 1936 in New York City, graduated from UC Berkeley, and she was an elementary school teacher for many years. And when she gives speeches, you can see that, she's talking very kindly. So in her mid-30s, she traveled to French Alps, where she met Lama. I'm not sure, it's a Chim Rinpoche, and ordained as a novice in 1974. And in 1981, she became fully ordained in Chinese lineage in Hong Kong. She is the current abbess of Gompo Abbey in rural Cape Breton in Nova Scotia. She is the author of many books on Buddhism. And this is Bhikkhuni Karma Lekshe Somo. 1982, she was fully ordained in South Korea. And she co-founded Sakshadita, Daughters of the Buddha, International Association of Buddhist Women. It still exists, and they do annual meetings in different parts of the world. She's present associate professor, theology and religious studies. This is Bhikshuni Thubten Chodron. I have listened to her talks when I worked at Wisdom Publications as an intern. I was doing some work with some recordings she did, and I was correcting the transcripts made by someone. She is she has so much wisdom. She became fully ordained in 1987, the year I was born, and established Saraswati Abbey in Washington State. 1998, there was this international full ordination ceremony in Bodh Gaya, India, and bhikshunis to pay respect to their preceptors. This is an image there where there is bhikshunis Thubten Chodron and Karma Lekshotsomo. The present His Holiness Dalai Lama and also Karmapa, they have done some revival attempts, and they have been successful. They have supported Bhikshuni order, and it's a great thing that my professor, Professor Janet Gyaso from Harvard University, she personally travels to these events. And when His Holiness and also Venerable Karmapa, when they came to the United States, normally Professor Janet Gyaso introduces them to the audience. So she has such strong connection with them. In 1988, about 5 Sri Lankan 10 preceptor nuns, including Ayakema, were fully ordained as bhikkhunis at Si Thai Temple in Southern California by Taiwanese bhikshus and bhikshunis, as supported by elder Sri Lankan bhikshu Venerable Havanpola Ratanasara and newly founded Sakshadita. This is Venerable Ayakema. She has become the voice of women and voice of Buddhism, and she became fully ordained in 1988 at that time. So I think this shows that there has been giants in women's order, and their services are still appreciated by people. When it re-established in Sri Lanka, so this ordination also happened in Sri Lanka. Sri Lankan nuns were called Dasasil Matas, 10 preceptors, and now they are called bhikshunis because Bhikshuni Sangha is now available. And some prefer to remain as Dasasil Matas, some prefer to remain as Bhikshuni Sangha. So this is a pioneering Buddhist nun, Bhikshuni Kusuma. She has been a professor, and she has traveled extensively, and she has established many Bhikshuni centers in Sri Lanka and in the world. And I have had students of her learned, these have been Bhikshunis when I was teaching in Sri Lankan universities. So I have, I really admire her skills. And you have many video presentations of her in YouTube. So I think we can stop here. We have 15 Bhikshuni ordination in Sri Lanka is in 2003. There are many accounts of these, different numbers. First Bhikshuni, higher ordination, American Bhikshuni Ayya Sudhamma, Thailand's Venerable Dhammananda, and Burmese-born Ayya Gunasari and Ayya Satchavadi ordained here. Bhikshuni Dhammananda. So these Venerable Bhikshunis, there was a secret ceremony because they didn't want any press attention until it has been established. In Thailand, the Bhana, trained by Bhante Gunaratana of Bhavana Society, and then she got the full ordination in Dambulla. I have met her also in Ottawa. There has been Bhikshuni Congress here. This is Hamburg Congress. Bhikshunis meet in these places. So this is Ajahn Braham and Venerable monks. I think you will also see nuns if you Google these images. These are Bhikshuni meetings. You see Venerable Bhikshunis and Bhikshus in Spirit Rock Meditation Hall. Sima is a boundary where they do formal Bhikshu and Bhikshuni confessions and events. So today there are now Bhikshunis, Bhikkhus in every part of the world, including India, Italy, Germany, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and Sri Lanka. All right. Any questions?
Thank you, Bhanteji. That was amazing talk. I'm sure there would be a lot of questions, but I want to take the first one. It was really fascinating to see the whole journey of how, Bikuni Sangha was created in the Dhamma. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about what were the, additional precepts that Buddha asked women to take. That would be really
So what it was, I have this here. There was somewhere, in this article that these were summarized also they are found in the book. So here are the rules. The bhikshus were always to have precedence over bhikshunis in matters of salutation, irrespective of any other consideration. Meaning, if you have become a bhikshuni for 100 years, but if you see a monk who is newly ordained today, you will show respect. Because at the time, the Buddha did not want any people protest against Buddhism, saying that, oh, now we see, male monks bowing down to female nuns. So this would not have been an appealing image at that time. All right. So number 2, bhikshunis could not observe the annual retreat in a district where there were no bhikshus. You see here the Buddha expects nuns to live close to monks. Now, one reason for this is for the protection, because even at the time when nuns entered the order, they were they were, for people who are looking for karma, lust, they would find even bhikkhunis beautiful and want to abuse them. So therefore, the Buddha wanted nuns to be in the protection and in the vicinity. So monks could also give them routine advice. So then number 3 is monks had to set the dates for nuns for their bi-monthly uposatha ceremonies. This is when nuns go and monks come together for in the sima, if they, and for them to confess and take advice for future practice. And number 4, confessing transgressions by bhikshunis had to be done before the assembly of both bhikshus and bhikshunis. So nuns would come, and say, I made this kind of mistake, and they would do so in front of both nuns and monks. And you can see in the Buddha's time, there were some questions, though. The Buddha said, monks, monks should not be asking those questions from nuns. So therefore, women, the ordained nuns should ask those questions and then pass them over to monks, because he didn't want the women to be embarrassed. And number 5, certain judicial processes in case of bhikshunis had to be undertaken by both the sanghas. So again, collaboration between the monks and nuns. And number 6, upasampada, initiation of bhikshunis should be given by the bhikshu sangha as well. Another collaboration attempt. Upasampada means the full ordination. So when nuns have received 5 years of sikkhamana training, that is novice nuns training, when they are ready to receive the full ordination, monks also should be involved. And number 7, bhikshuni should never abuse a bhikkhu. This is, of course, in this case, using egoistic claims is what the Buddha tries to prevent. But if they see a fault of a monk, they don't directly accuse it, but they bring the matter to the, and if the Buddha was present, they would bring it to the presence of the Buddha, or they would discuss it in a group. Even lay followers are supposed to say if there is a mistake of the monk's part. Lay followers are permitted to explain that, but in a way that is not disrespectful. Number 8, bhikkhus can officially admonish bhikshunis, but not vice versa. So this is a rule also to avoid getting social outcry coming from outside the society. So monks can ordain. So I say here, this is a beautiful thing, that it's my duty to ordain nuns, because if bhikshunis ordain monks, that would be slightly awkward, which is why the Buddha wanted always let the monks take the lead and ordain nuns. These are the additional rules. And you see, Mahaprajapati was not a stupid person. She would not have accepted it just because her son, the Buddha, said it, if it was not appealing to her. Mm-hmm. So let's think about that also.
Yeah, for sure. So it just as a follow-up, I understand, these lot of precepts show like the democratic kind of point Buddha had at that point. And I also understand the society has changed, and at that point it was difficult to control societal outcry. If Buddha gave something really revolutionary, or so, he was already doing a lot of revolutionary things.
Yes.
So I'm wondering if there are movements, or there are things that are working within Sangha and Dhamma now to change some of these practices, because we understand that some of these practices seem very let's say, old for today's society?
I think so. Things have changed, and I myself have witnessed these, that sometimes monks monks and nuns stay close to, close. And sometimes I have seen, like, I remember this clear incident where I visited a bhikshuni in Kandy, Sri Lanka, and she saw me bowing to that's her son, actually, bowing to her. And another day when we visited, he bowed to me, and then she asked, "Wait a minute, last time Bhante Kusala bowed to you, and this time you did vice versa. Like, who's senior here?" So she, so right there, she had the courage to ask, but then our seniority had changed because of our ordination stats. So just like that, but not strongly though, because sometimes they hesitate to change something the Buddha had laid down. But about revivals, bhikshunis themselves, although they talk about women power and empowering women, they don't act that radical. They want to peacefully coexist and do their part. And you see, when this book was being translated, I was sent to some main main bhikkhu centers in Sri Lanka, the Mahanayaka places. And sometimes I was little, I was happy to see, also a little disappointed. Sometimes they say, don't put your name in there, you will have problems in the future. But then at that moment, I decided to put my name in it. But these monks, one thing beautiful they said was that in Sri Lanka, Bhikshuni order will not be accepted, but we support them. One of the monks said, "I just came from an event that was organized by bhikkhunis. I support it, but if I use my name for that, all the newspapers will, write about it and use it against me. So I just don't need the press attention, but I support them." But there is also politics, and I don't need to get into those things.
Yes, no,
Just as
thank
you
you.
say,
Yeah, no. This
just
is
as you
helpful
say,
to
we support
understand.
Bhikshuni.
Yeah.
Yeah. Things are slightly changing though.
Thank you, Bhanteji. Yeah, if
Slowly
anybody
changing.
has questions, if anybody has questions after this fascinating talk, please go ahead.
Bhante, Kusala.
Hello.
My sincere gratitudes for you to take many of us through a journey of seeing the better half of the mankind, that is human folks. I want to make very brief observation. You mentioned so many ordinary human folks all over the world embracing the Buddhism and from academy and normal life, becoming mothers and also giving birth to daughters, becoming bhikkhunis. Probably this is one of the best thing to happen. Now I will come to the observation and the question. Only yesterday I had about 3 hours webinar wherein researchers from Germany, America, and South Africa, in the space domain, of course, a small group. What I want to say, AANA, for example, today is converging so many best practices in the name of Namo Bodhaya Jai Bhim. That is the vision. And I found in the past weeks. So my question is very simple. A younger generation, more so in this case today, the women folk, are badly in need of these best practices. This is possible. See, that sort of a vision is available. Because a couple of weeks back, I had one of my senior colleagues. He's a retired bank employee. His daughter is well educated. You know what she's telling her father? Father, father, why you did not tell us about Buddhism? Now I'm suffering so much because I'm forced to practice pujas, going up to gods. I'm doing things not of my choice. Now, what I want to say is this. I got a book in 1980s, Chicago area, Buddhism being taught to the children. I think the best thing to do is consolidated these best practices. For example, your presentation. To me, it looks a wonderful document to tell to those women folks in the universities, in the primary school, middle school, high school, because women have got today an empowerment, an economical empowerment. But where to go after that? Where to go after that? There's no way, because we are filled with so much of crores of gods. You see, crores of ams, we call it harakes. People take blindly. I think I want to conclude by saying that these best practices should be kept at one hub so that anybody can pick it up and show, because nothing is like showing, doing and showing, doing and showing. If so many bhikkhunis are doing so many of the good practices, I think this should come out like a stamp. This should come out like an image. This is possible. That's sort of a, I think AANA will be doing a human service. If this can be brought in America, Japan, India, and elsewhere. At least I want to conclude by saying that the demography in the whole world, especially in Europe, we don't have the working population. Indians are moving everywhere. But Indians also can go with Buddhism concepts. You see, earlier it was from the coldest region to the hottest region, like the British Empire. Buddhism was all over the world. And it has been constrained, it has been constrained, it has been mutilated, it has been, I don't want to use the word, it has been really squeezed in a way as if it is something bad. But it is on the reverse, it's good. See, the moment women folks started realizing that Buddhism is the way out. Just imagine if they get the martial arts known to them, no force, there could be no violence at women, no physical assault, no abuse of women. But we have not taught them the skill, the empowering skill. So my last sentence is enabling women folks to care for their environment using Buddhist philosophy, as shown by so many bhikkhunis, is the way out. I think we'll be able to make a tunnel through the mountain of resistance. Thank you very much for such an enlightening presentation. Please share your presentations. I love to take it wherever I go, to give to my children, to my daughters, my students, everywhere. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. So thank you, Mr. Jagannatha, for your kind words. And I think for children, for women, for girls, the best thing to do is to set it by example from home. They learn from home and bring books and, show compassion, not from books, but from your own heart. And they learn, like, where did my father learn that from? And they will see that the father has been a Buddhist, or at least he became a convert Buddhist later. And that's where, or became a better human of whatever he has been before. And my childhood has been very different from a child who grows up in the West here. So we need to see these differences, and I think it begins from home. Patience, kema, the word kema means patience, a name of a bhikkhuni. So all these things, example is the best way to teach. So thank you. I see there is a hand up.
I'm able to think with this clarity because of my mother-in-law. For 30 years, she was Upasaki. 30 years. My father-in-law and mother-in-law, they used to go every weekend to they were Upasaka and Upasakis. That shaped me and my family not to bother about these gods. And my three daughters, one a doctor, one an engineer, one an architect, they're doing very well because they don't have this, the fear, the bondage of God, fear. You see, See, that is the way, because my life itself is an example. I must thank my mother-in-law, Professor V.M. Parvathamma Upasaki, for 30 years. She was a part of Mahabodhi society in Mysore and Bangalore. So such women folks are always there. I think they are our strength. I want to thank you once again.
Living humans are really gods, that they teach more than statues. And the way they became gods and became statues is not just by doing nothing. They did great services, and now people want to worship them because they're great services. And if you don't let go of something of you, something like eating meat or something from your side, you aren't really getting any benefit from that spirit, from that God. So I see hands up, and whoever's hand was up first, maybe they can begin.
Okay, Bhante ji, Namo Buddhaya. My question is...
yeah, thank you, Siddhi.
Okay. My question is, you have shown your presentation and we have seen a lot of Bikunis from all over the world, but I didn't see any reference to the Bikuni from India. So I just want to know, what is the situation of Bikuni Sangha in India? That is the one question. And second, during your presentation, you told that the Buddhism was eradicated in Sri Lanka at some part of the history. We would like to know what were the reasons for that. Means we know in India, some Brahmin king massacred the Buddhist monks and all this, and that basically resulted into the Buddhism get lost in the history. What has happened in Sri Lanka? Just curiosity. Thanks.
Bikunis still exist, and I don't remember the names off of my head, although they became extinct within India, but they were established in other parts of the world. So, but they do exist now. That they have nunneries established, and even an American nun known to me, Sister Kema from Dhamma Sukha Meditation Center, now lives in India and has established a place for bhikshunis. So it's like that. They do exist, but their names are not known to me. So I may have better answers later. But why Buddhism disappeared from Sri Lanka is, if you read the history of Sri Lanka, you find British people and Portuguese, starting from 1505. Portuguese came, and then a century later, Dutch people came, and then another century later, British came, and they established little like their practices, Christianity, Protestantism, and monks even translated Bible into Pali at that time for their survival. And they also quit being monks because monks were being killed and threatened. There was a lot of gun violence, and monks had to quit robes and put on white clothes and live as if they were not monks, doing farming and stuff like that for their survival, until there were only novice monks who were not fully ordained. And for them to receive full ordination, they had to sail to Thailand or Burma and then bring Buddhism. So those are the reasons. And there were also other rivals, like political unrest were the main reasons for the disappearance.
Okay.
But sometimes this is not known. Sometimes they think, it lasted like since the early days. But no, things have undergone these changes. When I learned it, it was surprising to me at first, but then now I see that everything is impermanent. Nothing is permanent. So Bhikkhu Sangha is no different from that.
Thank you, Bhante.
Now we have somebody else's hand up.
Yeah, Manish, if you want to go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, Vandami Bhante, this is Manish, calling from Memphis, speaking from Memphis, Tennessee. I had a question on this only, Buddhism teach about ahimsa, like no killing, but at the same time we have king like Samrat Ashoka, who was such a big king. So can you sometime cover this topic, like how Samrat Ashoka ruled so nicely on such a big part of world? Again, as a king, he may have some type of punishment for the wrong people, or to make people bring on the right path. So I know I want to learn about like those techniques, like how Samrat Ashoka, like come as a big king, and even though following Buddhism. So maybe we may need a separate topic because that may be a big topic. But yeah, I would like to listen about that, like how a person can follow Buddhism, but at the same time he's like a big king or big emperor.
Yeah, so earlier, when just as he won the war, I think this was Kalinga War, I'm not sure, but really a big war, and he did a lot of killing, and he was regretting it already. And nobody in the kingdom was able to please him, no recluse. And only when a 7-year-old novice monk passed by, he was so delighted, to see that this monk was peaceful, and he invited the monk to the palace and made him sit in the throne. And the monk, you know, started teaching. And one thing he taught was that you have done enormous damage to mankind by winning wars and letting bloodshed and all that. But forget about your past, and you live according to the conditions of the present, and make sure you steady your mind. So when these instructions were given, there was this quality of the monks teaching that Acharyang Bhante, this is marvelous, Abhutam Bhante, this has never been there before. And I love to follow you because I see your serenity, your peace, and your wisdom from example. I think the great king followed his steps, and eventually this monk was able to I think he was an enlightened monk already, and King Ashoka then realized that there were so many who had entered the order who were not really pursuing Buddhism. They were corrupted in their mind later because the king was supporting Buddhism, and he dispelled them and also organized the Third Buddhist Council and purified Buddhism, and then established the message of the Buddha in many places and sent it away to many countries as messengers, including his own son and daughter being sent to Sri Lanka. So it's the way you listen to the teachings and the way it is presented to you. Nowadays, it's unfortunate that we have beautiful sermons, but the surprisingly, people are so busy, or sometimes the sermon itself doesn't have that impact on people. Maybe it doesn't address the type of wisdom that people need to be inspired of. So I'm just observing these things by listening to Dhamma myself, that some Dhamma, when taught properly, has that power to change somebody's way of thinking. I think maybe that's the kind of teaching King Asoka received, and he was pleased with that direction and path. So we can talk about it, of course, another time if you need further details. About women empowerment, I didn't really prepare these slides myself. There are many PowerPoint presentations, and only yesterday I was called about the change. Well, I wasn't prepared for anything anyway, but then I was told, can we have this women empowerment as a topic for today? And I was already in a different event, and I said, of course, I knew I had enough tools for that. So that's how I landed here. So I had just shared the slides. It has 88 something slides, but some of these will be very helpful to you. So I see Chetak.
This is perfect. I think we have one more question. Chatak, if you want to go ahead and ask your question. No, thank you. This was perfect. This is a perfect session for closing our month. After Chatak asks the question, we can move on.
Vandami Bhanteji, this is Chatak from Michigan. It was a very good informative session. While answering Manish, you mentioned about Ashoka's third Buddhist council. Can you just comment a few seconds about first and second Buddhist council?
Yes, first council took place 3 months after the passing away of the Buddha, and there were 499 Arahant monks, and then joined later by Venerable Ananda, who is a newly, he became an Arahant newly and had also developed psychic abilities. He joined the council. So this is called Panchasatika Council because 500 monks, Arahants, joined the council. This was held in Saptaparni cave in a pavilion built near the cave, and I have been to that place. There's the cave, but not the pavilion built. I guess King Ajatasattu was the sponsor of this whole event, and in that they collected all the Dhamma and Vinaya and grouped them and assigned them to different monks, leaders and their lineages, asking them to memorize it and preserve it for the future, because at that time writing down was not a practice. And of course, because only the enlightened monks were selected for this council, there were many monks who were not yet enlightened, and they also built their own alliance, and eventually they became Mahasangha, Mahayana. And the other monks who were elders, Theras, became Theravada, and so on. There was this schism and splitting happened. And then 100 years after, there was the second council, which was attended by 700 Arahant monks. So that one is called Sattasatika Sangiti. This, I think, took place during the time of King Kala Ashoka, if I recall it correct. My memory serves me correctly, I'm not so sure, but there are historical records found online if you need further details. And the third one is the one done by King Ashoka. So that was attended by 1,000 enlightened monks, and they added the Katavattu Pakarana as the last part. They added to the scriptures. And the fourth one actually is the one that happened in Sri Lanka, in which during there was a drought. So many monks fled the country, went to India, where there were only 15 monks remaining, and they went through a lot of hardships. And at that point, the scripture was not written down. And when the monks returned after the drought, they decided to put it into writing during the King Valagamba's time in I don't know which century that was. And when it was written down, it was available for others to copy and take to different parts of the world. So that's why Sri Lanka is highly respected as the country that preserved Buddhism and Buddhist scripture. So that is about this. That's considered the fourth council, and there has been other councils up to 12 now. Some months in Burma, some months in Sri Lanka, some months in Thailand, and it goes on. But before that, I like to share something that I wrote a song about women. This was in Pali for Women's Day, and the Sri Lankan singers sung it. And I have the recording. But while you think of other questions, let me find it.
Oh, that would be great.
So I can play it for you.
And Bhanteji, there was another question about the name of the book. I think the presentation that you shared, the Seven Sisters, Spiritual Friendship, Companionship, and Sisterhood, Then and Now. That's the book's name, right?
The book's name is Bikuni Ordination, All right, so I can put it.
Yeah.
Maybe I can put it into the slides so you find the book. Yeah.
Sure, or I can chat with I can chat it for everyone. Okay, perfect. Yes.
And that's the article I just shared, not actually the book yet. So here is the. Here's the book.
Okay. Thank you, Bhante. So we have a couple of announcements. Oh. Sorry, that logged me off somehow. We have a couple of announcements coming up because, after this great, fascinating talk, we kind of feel like we had a good discussion and closure to the month, the Women's History Month that we have been celebrating in March. And next, as all of us know, April is really, I feel like all of April we celebrate as a very celebratory month because of Baba Saheb's birthday. And so we have a lot of organizations, a lot of people, a lot of Ambedkarite organizations who are celebrating, birth anniversary of Dr. Ambedkar this month in April. And we have all of them, wanting to make announcements about when that is happening. So, but
Ready? Maybe let me see if it will play. Maybe after that you can end with all the announcements.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
It's a bunch of Pali Sanskrit words all about women, and I end the song with titles they hold, like Mata, Bhagini. Mata is mother. So these are, each word has a story. And I decided to put them all together. And she liked it, so she picked to sing it. And that's how it all happened.
Great.
Can you hear?
Yes.
कार्येषु मन्त्री करणेषु दक्षि रूपेषु लक्ष्मी समयन्तरज्ञा स्नेहेषु माता शयनेषु वेश्या षड्भिस्तु नारी कुलमुद्भवन्ति जननी पार्वती मानवी सीमांती धारे सुमंत्री करने सुदक्षी रूपे सुलक्ष्मी समयंतरज्ञा स्नेहे सुमाता शयने सुवेशा षड्विंशतो नारी कुलमुद्भवन्ति.
So that's it.
Beautiful.
Really beautiful. Very beautiful. Bhanteji, could you tell us a little bit what the song is about? Just a little bit.
It's about, so I found there are many words to describe women. I decided to put them together in a nice order. And I realized that each word has a story. So, and that became a song.
Bhanteji, is it available on YouTube?
That's really beautiful. Really beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And for everybody's, sorry. Go ahead. You were saying something? For everybody's, notice, we have a lot of resources that Bhanteji put in the chat. So we have the presentation, we have the interview, and then we have the book that Bhanteji has shared. So please make sure that you download that and you will be able to access those.